Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to Singing Creek Farm. I am Danielle Upshaw, and I am so excited to start this video series for you all where we cook through the recipes in my new cookbook that I released. If you want to purchase my cookbook that's all about freshly milled flour, you can go to singingcreekfarm.com and head over to my shop page, or I'll also put a link to it in the description. In this series, we're going to be replacing our normal pantry goods with freshly milled wheat products we've made ourselves instead. I'm going to walk you through step by step how to do every single recipe in the cookbook, and we are going to start out with our everyday sandwich bread. My dog's eating his food, if you can hear that. But in case you didn't know, freshly milled flour contains 40 of the 44 nutrients that are required to sustain human life. You cannot get this nutrition in store-bought flour. If you want to know why, you can go check out some of my other videos. I'll link the one I'm talking about in the comments here. So today we're making sandwich bread, and whenever I make this, I pretty much always double it and then make one loaf be cinnamon raisin bread, and then the other one be just plain. Or if I know, like, we're going to have a heavy lunch week at school and the kids love to have PB&Js, I'll just make 2 plain loaves and make a ton of peanut butter jellies and put them in the freezer. I'm super excited today, though. We're going to try this together. I have partnered with Guardian Grains to help get wheat berries into your all's hands. They are a farm that uses regenerative practices to ensure that the products they offer are not only healthy for our bodies, but also healthy for the earth. Everything they do tests glyphosate free. And they have other products too, like you can buy flour and you can buy pastas. Their pastas are amazing. They literally only contain water and flour. You can't get simpler than that. If you also want to try them out, you can go to guardiangrains.com and at checkout, put in the code Singing Creek Farm, all one word, and I will be able to get you 15% off your entire order. They shipped me a box of goodies, and one of those that was in there is this, and I'm super excited to give it a try. I have never used it before. It is called Heritage Rouge de Bordeaux Hard Red Wheat Berries, and I've used hard red wheat berries a lot in my bread baking, but I have not used the Rouge de Bordeaux. I hope I'm not butchering that variety, but I want to read you the description. The part I'm excited about is where it talks about this. It says, this wheat variety delights with subtle hints of cinnamon in every bite. And so I can't think of a better recipe to try with this than the cinnamon raisin bread. I also wanted to show you how you can do this by hand or by using a mixer. So I'm actually going to be making 2 different loaves of bread. The normal one I do will be with the hard white wheat. You always want to use a hard wheat variety for breads because it has more gluten in it. And then for the cinnamon raisin loaf, I am going to be using this one so we can see how that new flavor comes out. And so this one I will be doing in the mixer to show you how that works. And then this one I will be doing by hand. If you are in my cookbook and you are following along with that, this is the very first recipe in it, and it's called the Everyday Sandwich Wheat Bread. If you don't have my cookbook and you would like to, so you can follow along with us, just go to singingcreekfarm.com and it is under my shop tab. It is actually an ebook, so you can just immediately have it, download it on your phone, or you can then print it out, whatever is easier for you, and then you can follow along with us. Buying my cookbook is one of the best ways you can directly support me. I decided not to put these videos up as a paid course because I really wanted the most of you to be able to see it for free as possible. I know I am a very economically conscious person, and I would love to be able to take more of you under my wing than I would be able to if I did this as a paid course. Another free way you can help me is by commenting, liking, sharing these videos, and of course, subscribing to the channel. You can also find me at Singing Creek Farm on TikTok and Instagram. Enough jabbering, let's get baking. Okay, so for each loaf, I am now going to mill 3 cups of wheat berries through the finest setting of my Harvest grain mill. This is the Nutrimill Harvest. You do not have to have this grain mill. You can use any grain mill. But I'm going to put 3 cups of this flour through here, and I have it coming out in this little bowl. And again, this is the hard white wheat. And after this is done, I'm going to mill the other one, and I'll keep them separate. So with this wheat mill, it's important that you turn it on and have it running before you put the wheat berries in, but read the instructions for the mill that you have. So I'm going to turn mine on, and I'm going to turn it tighter until I hear the stones start to touch each other, and then I'm going to pull it just a tad looser so that they're not grinding together. I don't want to glaze my stones. Okay, you hear them? Now I'm going to turn it the other way. Okay, so this is as fine as I can get the flour. Okay, it just finished. I wish you all could smell it. It has a very like warm, nutty flavor. It's a very distinct smell. I am now going to pour this into my mixing bowl, and then I am going to mill the Rouge de Bordeaux variety. All right, I'm trying to get the best angle here so where you can see me, but you can also see the inside of the bowls. So we have milled our flour. You can definitely see the difference in these two flours from the red versus the white wheat. So I am going to put the red into the bowl of my mixer. I do not need to measure it again because I created this recipe to where I can just measure the wheat berries going into the wheat mill versus on the other side once we're out. Put all this in here. Okay, so now we have our flours in our two different varieties. I'm going to set this over here. So now we are going to add all of our wet ingredients to these two bowls. We're going to mix it until it's just combined, and then we are going to let it rest, which is called an autolyze. When you bake with freshly milled flour, I have discovered that if you introduce an autolyze into the process, that you are going to have a much better product at the end. Otherwise, it's not enough time for this whole grain to fully absorb the moisture from the ingredients. So to each of these, we are going to start off by adding 1.5 cups or 235 grams of very warm water. Just tap warm is fine. All right, we are now going to add our olive oil. You can also use avocado oil if you don't have olive oil. A lot of people actually prefer avocado oil over olive oil because it has a higher burn point. After visiting an olive oil farm in Italy, I am very smitten. So, but you can make your own choices. I like to do the olive oil first, and then before I pour it out, I like to kind of swirl it around so that the whole measuring cup is covered in olive oil, because that's going to make it a lot easier for the honey that we're measuring to then come out of it. So then we are going to measure 1/3 cup of honey into each of these as well. 1/3 cup of honey. Scrape that out. All right, now same thing over here. One thing I actually learned about honey is that it's really important to buy raw and unfiltered honey. You're actually helping the bee population, from what I have been told and researched, when you purchase raw and unfiltered honey, because it is essentially rewarding the people who are doing holistic practices with bees to keep doing it properly. So I use raw and unfiltered honey whenever I'm possibly able to. Same with any of my micro bakery products. And people have asked, this is the sandwich bread that I sell in the micro bakery. So that is all we are going to add at this point. I am now going to put this one into the mixer with a dough hook attachment on it, and I'm going to mix it until it's just combined, and I'm going to mix this one by hand because I want to show you it's possible both ways. In case you don't know, this is the dough hook attachment. This is Tiffany. She's my KitchenAid. She's Tiffany blue, obviously. So I am just going to put the bowl on there, and I'm going to lock it, and I'll just put it on a low speed. And while I'm hand mixing this other one, this one will mix to combine too. Oh, one thing I forgot, I'm also going to add just a splash of vanilla to the cinnamon raisin loaf. You do not have to do this. If I am normally just doubling the recipe and then at the end turning one into a cinnamon raisin loaf, I don't add any vanilla. But because I am doing this separately and I'm doing it just for raisin bread, I'm going to add a little extra flavor since we're doing something sweet. I'm not even going to measure this. I'm just going to do like 2 splashes. It's probably a teaspoon. Okay, I just also turned the mixer up. I believe it's on level 2 now. But I am just going to mix this by hand. Try to move it to where you can see. There we go. Y'all are going to have to bear with me as I figure out all of these camera angles and everything. But this is not going to look like bread dough. And you'll see a huge difference in how it feels and handles after it autolyzes versus the before. All right, this looks good to me. So it's very crumbly looking, and that's fine. This is what we want it to look like. I'm just going to grab a towel, get it wet, and I'm going to cover this. I'm going to turn off the mixer. I'm sure it's combined as well, and we'll cover it, and we're just going to let it sit. This is called an autolyze. For the optimal amount of time here is 30 to 60 minutes, but even if you can just spare 10 to 15 minutes, just give it a second to rest and to let that moisture start to soak into all of the molecules of the flour. All right, you can use saran wrap for this as well, but I like to use damp towels. I try not to use plastic when I don't have to. All right, now I am just gonna go work on some other things while this sits. All right, I'm back. It's been about 30 minutes and this dough has sat. I can immediately tell a difference in how the flour is acting than it was before. It's easier to form together in a ball. It just feels wetter. Here it is. Now that we are done with our autolyze, it is time to add the salt and the yeast. And those two things work against each other. You can actually kill yeast by adding too much salt to it if it comes in direct contact. So it's important when you add it that you do it to separate sides of the bowl. So we're gonna do that now. To this bowl, I am adding 2 teaspoons of salt and then 1 tablespoon of yeast. 1 tablespoon is 3 teaspoons, and this is a 2 teaspoon measurement. So I'm gonna add just 1 more teaspoon there. Now I'm gonna do the same thing over in Tiffany. We're gonna mix until combined and start kneading. So I'm just gonna go ahead and turn my mixer Tiffany onto a medium speed. We will do this one by hand. I'm just going to start mixing it with my dough whisk. You can even just use a fork if you don't have one of these. It is not necessary, even just a wooden spoon will be fine. Okay, so now that it is fully combined, I'm actually gonna start kneading it, and we are gonna do this one by hand so I can show you both ways of doing it. I'm gonna take my ring off and I'm gonna start in the bowl, and we will end up turning this out, and you will see the gluten start to activate as we work with it. I'm gonna go ahead and turn mine out onto the counter. For the record, before we videoed this, I sanitized and cleaned everything, so I know we're good to go. So when you knead, you are essentially folding the dough over onto itself and pressing down. And this is going to create gluten strands, layer upon layer upon layer of them, and you will be able to tell a huge difference in our dough when we get there. You can see how it's barely holding together right now, that it's really crumbly, but by the time we are done kneading this, it is going to be a smooth ball of dough. You want to knead it until we get to what is called the window pane stage. I just turned the mixer down now that it has formed a dough ball to a low speed. It's on speed 2, and I will tell you the mixer is probably going to be faster than me. This usually takes me about 8 minutes to do, but if you've never kneaded before and you don't have your technique down, then it may take you longer. But that's why I like to say to go until you get to the window pane stage, because then you know for a fact whether you've done it long enough, and I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like when we get there. With freshly milled flour, it's very easy to have the instinct that you should add a little more flour because it's so wet, but I'm telling you to not do that. If you need to add anything, you should add oil. Do not add any flour because you're just going to end up with a much denser loaf. I promise you will see when we get to the end that it was not actually too wet. One thing I didn't say that I forgot is that this is an amazing recipe for a bread machine. So when I didn't run a micro bakery and wasn't baking bread all of the time, then I would use the bread machine a lot. I mean, every few days I was using the bread machine. So you can just literally throw all of the ingredients into the bread machine and it will do everything for you. So you can even, like in the morning before you go to work, just load everything into the bread machine. It can even bake the bread for you, and you can come home to a loaf of amazing bread already ready to go. I would often use it because usually a bread machine will bake it and it'll be a slightly wonky looking loaf, but it'll taste great. I would have it stop right before it bakes the bread. And so at that point, I would take out the dough and I would put it in my own bread pan, in my own oven, or I also use this recipe to make cinnamon rolls. So you can roll this into a rectangle after the next rise, and you could add cinnamon sugar, roll it up and cut it into cinnamon rolls. This also is a really good dinner roll recipe. So you can just throw it all in the bread machine, let it do its thing and have it beep at you when it's time to take it out before it bakes. Take it out, section it into all the little rolls, and then put it in your pan and you're ready to go. So it's really a versatile recipe that you can use for a lot of things, which is why it is the very first recipe in my cookbook, because there's so many things that you can turn this into. And if you ever want to clean your hands off, you just kind of rub them together like this, even your fingers together, and you'll see it all come off, and then you can just kind of pick it up with the bread dough. I think Tiffany beat me. Here's what she's looking like. Let's check this dough for window pane. It's looking good. You see how it's cleaned the sides of the bowl and it's looking really elastic? That is what we're going for when we use a mixer. So the window pane stage is when there is enough strength in your dough that it can hold itself together enough that it can get so thin that you can see light shining through it. There's a picture of this in the cookbook, but I'm gonna see if I point the camera at one of my lights and put this up to it, if I can show you too. Okay, so window pane is when I hold the bread up and I thin it out using the weight of itself that I can see light through it, which I can right now. I don't know if the camera can, but you see how you can see light shining through it and it's not ripping? That is window pane. This is the hand kneaded bread, and you can see how when I try to pull it thin, we're really close, but it's actually starting, it's really close, but it starts to rip. So I'm gonna need mine just a little bit more. Okay, I have been kneading this bread for 9 minutes now, and I think I am there. I'm gonna test, do the window pane test. Gosh, I'm out of breath. Kneading bread, it can be a lot of work. All right, so I'm just gonna try to get it thinned out and see if it will. Yep, we are there. But you can also see how the dough is a totally different consistency than how we started, that now it's elastic. It can form a very smooth dough ball. And so we're right where we want to be. So I'm just going to form each of these loaves into a happy little dough ball. I have 2 of them here. You can totally see the difference between the red and the white one. They have a different scent too. You can really smell the cinnamon now. This is gonna be great. I cannot wait to try that. Using my hands, I'm just gonna lightly oil each of these bowls. Woo, that was too much. I'll go ahead and use the extra I accidentally poured out to go ahead and do the top of the dough balls. But you wanna just oil the bowl so that it doesn't stick. And then I'm gonna put each one back in. I've oiled the dough balls as well, oil the bottom. And now I am going to cover each of these, and I'm going to put them in a warm place to rise. Warmth will help it happen faster. You can also turn the light on in your oven and put them in there, and just the light from the heat of the light bulb can act as almost like a proofing drawer. I do not have a proofing drawer. I'm not that bougie, but even like in a warm window, anywhere like that will be fine. You want to let them rise until they have doubled in size. It usually takes me around 2 hours to get to this point, but if it's a really cold winter day, sometimes it's closer to 3 hours. Also, if it's in the middle of summer and it's really hot and humid, I've got to watch it because it can happen as quick as an hour. Our dough is finished with its first rise. Look at this. They have definitely grown. They're so fun to poke. Here it is. So now that our loaves have finished their first rise, they've doubled in size, we now get to do some fun stuff. We get to first punch it down. So I'm going to spray my hands with a little bit of olive oil. And I took my ring off. I advise you to do the same. Because we are doing 1 cinnamon raisin, I'm going to do that one second because I'm probably going to get my countertop messy while I do it. But this one, so we're going to punch down the dough. This is our plain sandwich loaf. Move this out of the way. And you want to go ahead and have your bread pans ready. This is my favorite bread pan currently. I'd love to eventually get some cast iron ones, but they're kind of expensive. This one is by Wilton, which, if you didn't know, actually used to be a professional cake decorator. So it's kind of funny that my favorite cake pan happens to be from a cake, or bread pan happens to be from a cake decorating company. So, but they're really good and thick, and the nonstick has never failed me. And they're a darker pan, so I'm able to get a good crust on it. And they're not super expensive. You can actually buy these at Walmart, but I'm gonna link them in my Amazon storefront, so make sure you get some of these. So I am going to go ahead and spray this loaf pan with a little bit of olive oil, and I'm gonna spray my countertop as well. And so this is our plain sandwich loaf. I'm gonna show you 2 different methods on how to form this. But you can literally just kind of free form it until you have gotten a loaf to fit in your pan. Like literally, that's all you have to do. Just make a log shape the same size as your pan. But I am going to show you a trick for those of you who want to make the most picture perfect loaf of bread. I am just gonna lightly oil this rolling pin. And so what we're gonna do is roll this dough into a rectangle. And I may do it, I'll try to do it this way so that you all can see it. The idea of it is you want the short side to be the same width as your bread pan. So you don't want to make that side too wide. Okay, so it's not perfect, but it's a rectangle. So now I'm going to show you a trick. So a traditional loaf of bread is domed. You kind of want it to have a curve to it. And so what we are doing is we're attempting to shape this in a way to help encourage it to have that dome in the center of the loaf. So what we're going to do is we are going from the short side, and I want you to pretend like you are making a paper airplane. So I have folded these two corners in to touch each other. And you see how this part's already lifted up? So now what we're going to do is we're going to start rolling this together from this point. And that has made there be a surplus of dough in the very middle, so it's going to help us get that dome shape. And I just like to do it kind of slowly and make sure the edges are tight, because this also can introduce some more air bubbles if you're not careful. So just take your time and make sure you're pulling it tight along the way. You don't want to have this big noticeable swirl in your bread loaf. So now you can see how I've got kind of that lump in the middle, and I did mine a tad longer than my pan on purpose. So can you see how this is a tad longer? This gives me room to pinch the ends and turn them under. So I'm going to pinch the ends, and I'm also going to pinch this seam, and I'm going to just very lightly turn them under. And you can even kind of push it away to help encourage that little part under. All right, can you see now how the loaf has a bit of a dome shape to it? That is the shape that you want to accomplish if you're going for the Instagram picture of sandwich dough. So we've already sprayed our bread pan, so now we are going to lift our dough up, and we're making sure the seams are on the bottom, and we're setting that inside of our loaf pan. Look, it's a perfect fit. I am now going to lightly spray the top with a little olive oil, and I'm going to go ahead and cover it with our same damp cloth again. And I'm going to set this one to the side while we do our raisin bread loaf. If you're just doing a plain loaf, you are now done. You need this to rise about 3/4 in height, and then you're going to preheat your oven, and then you can put this in. So you don't want to wait to preheat your oven until it's doubled in size, because then it may overproof before you can get it in there and fall a little bit. So just put this back wherever you did the first rise and let this take its time. Let's make our filling for the raisin bread. For the filling for the raisin bread, we are just going to get 1 cup of granulated sugar, and then 2 tablespoons of ground cinnamon. I have found that freshly milled flour pairs super great with a few flavors, and one of those is cinnamon. Really any kind of like spiced flavor just seems to go really good with freshly milled flour. I also love nutmeg in freshly milled flour. I actually add some nutmeg to the banana bread recipe. We're just going to mix this in really well. Our cinnamon and sugar mixture is ready, and we are also going to get 1 cup of raisins ready. All right, so I'm going to set this aside, and then we need to oil this a little bit so we can roll out our dough. If you wanted to turn this into cinnamon rolls instead, you could definitely do so at this point. If you did that, I would recommend brushing this with butter before you add the cinnamon and sugar, because cinnamon rolls are supposed to be bad for you. So you might as well just layer as much flavor as you can on there. Where there is fat, there is flavor. So add the butter if that's the route you are going. But we are just going to do cinnamon raisin bread today. So I am not going to brush this with butter. So I'm just going to cover the top of our bread with our cinnamon sugar mixture. And I may not end up using all of it. We'll just kind of see. And you don't want to take the sugar all the way to the exact edge. You want to leave about 1 inch there, because you are going to need room to be able to pinch the dough back together. We have about this much left over. Halfway through baking, I like to brush it with an egg wash and sprinkle this on top, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. So I'm now going to take 1 cup of raisins and sprinkle those on top as evenly as I can. Okay, so we've got our sugar mixture and we've got our raisins on here. I am now going to start folding this up. I do not do the paper airplane thing with this one because then we lose our swirl. And so I really want to get a really good swirl. Actually, I meant to do it from this side. I left more room on the other side to pinch at the end. So it is important when you roll this that you don't go as quick as you can, because you don't want to have any air trapped between these layers that you're creating when you roll it, because those layers are just going to grow and grow and grow, and you're going to have this huge separation in your bread when you go to cut it. And you'll just create really weird looking air bubbles when it bakes. So as I'm rolling, I'm kind of pressing down and I'm pulling just a little bit back towards me every now and then, just to make sure that no air bubbles are being created. Okay, so now I'm going to turn the end towards you guys so you can see. I am now going to roll it a little more. I'm feeling some air. Okay, so I'm now going to pinch these together. I feel like this got longer as I went. Oh well. All right. So I have now pinched everything together. And so now I'm going to try to just turn under these ends. So same as the other one, I'm just going to spray the top with a little olive oil and cover it with that damp cloth. And I'm going to let it sit until it has risen about 3/4 in size. Then I'm going to preheat the oven and put both of these in. I have now preheated my oven to 350 because these have raised about 3/4 in height. So here is our plain sandwich loaf, our cinnamon raisin loaf. So I'm actually not going to brush the cinnamon raisin loaf with an egg wash, because I'm going to do that part of the way through so I can sprinkle some of that cinnamon sugar on top. It is totally optional. You do not have to do that. I didn't even do it in the cookbook. This is just a little splash of water, literally maybe 1 teaspoon. I'm now going to take 1 egg and crack it into here. But I'm just going to take this and whisk it into the water, just a little tiny splash of water. And this is going to be my egg wash. I'm just going to take this brush and very gently brush a thin layer of egg wash on top of this loaf. This, like I said, is optional. This is just to make it really golden and shiny. I will say my eggs are from my backyard, and so they are going to be a lot more orange than any store-bought egg you get. So don't be shocked if you are not using fresh eggs. If yours looks a little different than mine does, that is totally fine. But we are actually going to go ahead and pop these in the oven, and I am going to set an alarm for 20 minutes. And in 20 minutes, I am going to brush an egg wash on top of the cinnamon raisin loaf and sprinkle my leftover cinnamon sugar on top. Okay, I just pulled the cinnamon raisin bread out of the oven. I left it in there for 25 minutes. And now I'm going to very quickly brush some egg wash onto this loaf. I want to be fast because I don't want to drastically affect the baking time. But I'm just going to brush this on the crust and sprinkle some of that onto the loaf. I didn't even do this in the cookbook, but this is a little touch I like to give it when I'm feeling like I want to be kind of fancy. Just be careful because this pan is hot, but I'm going to try to tilt the edges so I can better get these sides and put this back in to finish baking. Our cinnamon raisin loaf is still finishing up, but our sandwich loaf came out. Isn't it looking beautiful? It's got that nice dome on it. It is shiny. This has cooled for probably about 10 minutes. Where we took the raisin bread out and then put it back in, it really stalled its baking time. So I have a feeling it's about ready. But I do check the temperature of all of my loaves before I pull them for good. They need to be at least 190. Bread is fully cooked between 190 and 210 degrees. All right, I'm just gonna cut into the middle here Watch me have like a huge bubble for the one I try to put on YouTube. Oh, it looks good. Oh, here we are. You can see the steam rising from it. At least I can. But it is a wonderful looking bread. And it is nice and soft and spongy on the inside. And then we've got a hard crust. Let's go in for a taste. It slices beautifully. It is still pretty hot, but it can even just like tear apart. Moments like these, I'm like, okay, maybe I am good at this. It's got a really good chew to it. It has a bit of a bounce to it. It's not got tons and tons of air bubbles so that it's easier to spread fillings on it if you're making a sandwich or toast. The flavor of this bread, it actually has flavor compared to white bread that you buy at the store. It has a bit of a nuttiness to it that I really like. It kind of sits on the back of the tongue. And it has a bit of that traditional whole wheat flavor, but this really is just taken to another level. But it's really mild in flavor. I would not say that it's a very overpowering flavor. I would still classify it as a mild flavor. It definitely would pair well with even a meat sandwich. It's not so sweet that it wouldn't do well with anything like that. I love that the crust is a little bit crunchy, but it's not like so crunchy that it's like a sourdough loaf where like my kids would have trouble eating it. All right. Okay, so I turn it on and then I try to pick an inconspicuous spot to have a hole in the bread. You can even, oh yeah, we're there. We're at 200 degrees. Perfect. All right, I'm gonna see if this comes out easy. Where I added the sugar, it may have started to stick. Oh no, it's coming out. All right, we've browned a little bit on the bottom where some of the liquid has come out from the sugar. All right, I am just going to let this cool. And once it's cooled down a bit, we will cut into it and see if we achieved a swirl. I have got my little helper here. She saw the bread come out of the oven and came over. Can you tell everyone what your name is?
My name is Riel.
All right, you ready to try the raisin bread? All right, this is it. It's still a little warm, but we want to cut into it. But here is what it looks like. It's got a lot of that crackly sugar on the top. Cut it in the middle and see if we got a swirl. This is a knife, so keep your hands down, okay? All right, are we ready? I'm gonna bring it closer. Woohoo, we did it. Cheers. I can really taste, well, it's hard to say because I put cinnamon in the bread too, but this really has a good flavor. Is it hot? Oh, you can spit it out if it's too hot. Great. I will say I do love a heavy cinnamon flavor. So if you don't, you can always take down to just 1 tablespoon of cinnamon in the cinnamon sugar. But I love cinnamon, so I am always heavy-handed with it. Well, thank you all so much for joining me as we made some everyday sandwich bread and some cinnamon raisin bread. Again, if you want to purchase my cookbook and follow along with us, the link to it is in the description below.
Happy baking!